Hello and welcome to another training session with the Fusion Group. This session covers the automatic electrofusion system. The training program is extremely simple to follow and generally takes no more than 30 minutes. Don't forget, this training video is to be used in conjunction with the written guide. Together, their purpose is to enable all operatives to achieve simple, basic aims. To enable us to understand the principles of electrofusion jointing, to identify pipe and compatible fittings, to carry out pre-jointing equipment checks, to prepare the pipes for fitting and joining, to make satisfactory electrofusion joints for compatible pipes and fittings, to inspect for and identify acceptable quality joints. In particular, take some time to look at the do's and don'ts sections in our printed guide, and don't forget to study the safety notes and additional information. The equipment you require is also listed. Operating conditions and clean surfaces are extremely important, and the relatively small amount of time that you take to prepare for your fusion jointing will be rewarded later. As the guide shows, the principles are straightforward. Electrofusion is a method of jointing polyethylene pipes using fittings with integral heating systems. Sockets or couplers are used for jointing pipe to pipe. Also, saddle fittings are used, usually to connect surfaces to mains. The pipe to be joined must be prepared by removing the outer surface layer to a depth of around 0.2 millimeters, and then the pipe and fitting are clamped together to prevent movement. A safe voltage is applied across the fitting terminals via a control box. An electric current is passed through the wire, which melts the polymer and fuses the fitting to the pipe. After welding, the joint is allowed to cool before removing the restraint clamps. Before commencing, you should always check that both pipes and fitting to be joined are compatible. Only compatible materials should be joined together. Check PN and SDR ratings marked on the fitting and compare with that of the pipe. For more information, check the handy chart in our guide. Wherever possible, the electrofusion jointing area, which incorporates pipes, fittings and clamps, should be placed on a baseboard or ground sheet inside a tent or shelter to minimize airborne contamination and wind chill. We now move on to making socket joints, and this is how we recommend that you do it. You can follow this simple operation in the guide. Check that the pipe ends are square to the center line. Then wipe sufficient area of pipe inside and out to remove any traces of dirt or mud, etc., using a clean, dry, lint-free cloth or paper towel. After checking and setting the scraper, scrape one pipe end completely for more than half the fitting length. Wipe off loose swarf, again with a clean, dry, lint-free cloth or paper towel. If recommended by the utility, clean the scraped pipe with the appropriate wet wipes. Do not touch the prepared pipe surface by hand or allow the surfaces to get damp prior to continuing. If contamination occurs, then pipe ends must be cleaned or cut off. Now place the prepared pipe into the restraining clamp, aligning markings to the top. Open the bag and check the fitting. Be sure that the fitting is clean and place over the pipe end and push it to the center stop. Do not touch the fitting bore. Loose dirt can be removed with a clean, dry, lint-free cloth, or, if recommended, with the appropriate wet wipes. 110. If cleaning fails to remove dirt and contamination, reject the fitting. Mark the penetration depth on the pipe to half the fitting length, leaving the bag over the fitting for temporary protection. Remove the bag and push the second pipe home to the center stops. Mark the penetration depth on the pipe and tighten the restraining clamp. Check the fitting penetration. You should not be able to move it along the pipe. Visually check the pipe alignment on all planes. It is extremely important to note that spigot fittings, such as saddle outlets, spigot outlets on T's and stub flanges, should be scraped and restrained as with pipes. All electrofusion fittings should be kept in their bags until welding. Remember, once you've started to prepare a joint, the joint must be completed as soon as possible. We now move on to making the weld. Pipe preparation, scraping and clamping is applicable to every fitting. Firstly, check the generator power and fuel level. Start the generator. Then connect the control box mains plug into the generator output socket. Check lead ends are clean and dry and free from contamination such as mud and sand, etc. Connect control box output leads to the fitting terminals. Connect the red lead to the fitting terminal with the red pin and the black lead to the other. Check that the weld time marked on the fitting is displayed on the control box display. For manual fittings, check the time shown on the fitting and enter this figure into the control box. Respond to prompts from the control box. Press the Start button and the display will begin the countdown. The weld cycle is complete when the timer reaches 0 and the control box finish indicator shows. Allow the weld to cool for the full time stated on the fitting before removing the clamps and moving the assembly. Now check that the fusion indicators have risen. Now we move on to making the saddle joint. Pipe preparation and clamping is applicable to every fitting. This is how we recommend that you do it. You can follow this simple operation in the guide. Expose the pipe to which the saddle is to be welded. Remove loose dirt from the pipe with a clean, dry, lint-free cloth or paper towel. With the fitting still in its plastic bag, place it over the required position on the pipe. Mark the surface 10 mm clear all round the contact area. Then scrape the pipe to a depth of 0.2 mm. Scrape the pipe uniformly over the surface within the marked area. Wipe away any loose swarf with a clean, dry, lint-free cloth or paper towel. If recommended by the utility, clean both the pipe and the electrofusion area of the saddle with the appropriate wet wipes. Remove the fitting from the bag and attach to the pipe using the appropriate clamping equipment. Check the fitting details as before. Take care, do not touch either the prepared pipe surface or the electrofusion surface of the saddle. fuse the joint as before. Allow the recommended cooling time as before, removing the clamping equipment. Now we move on to making outlet joints. Pipe preparation and clamping is applicable to every fitting. The procedure is exactly the same as we have shown you for sockets. Clean the areas to be welded as before. Scrape the outlet of the tapping tee and the service pipe with the appropriate size mini scraper. Scrape the pipe uniformly over the surface within the marked area. Mark and then align the surface pipe fittings with the restraining clamp. Make the weld as previously shown. After the recommended cooling time, we can remove the clamps. Before cutting into the pipe, the new joint is pressure tested. As long as it checks out okay, then we can tap into the main. Remove the cap and retract the cutter until level with the top of the tapping tee stack. Then insert the tube into the top of the cutter. Insert the cutter key through the tube. Screw the cutter down and cut through the pipe. Then retract the cutter until level with the top of the tapping tee stack. Once fully retracted, remove the cutter key and tube. Then hand tighten cap to a solid stop. Please note that once the cap has been fully tightened, it becomes locked. It is important that once scraped, pipe surfaces must be kept clean and dry. It is worthwhile at this point to refer you to the quality checks in section 6 of the guide. These checks are for your benefit and are simplicity itself. In the case of fusion indicators, check to see if they have risen, and make sure that no melted material has exuded from the fitting. Check that the pipes have not moved during welding. Check for cleanliness around the joint. Check for evidence of scraping. Make sure that the saddles are square on the pipe. Finally, if you have a control box with the facility for data retrieval, then take a printout from the control box and check the result. If the weld fails any of the quality checks on the sockets, then you should cut out the joint and use another fitting. Or, if the weld fails any of the checks on saddles, then do not tap the main, but carry out a repeat weld using a new fitting at least 200 mm away from the failed joint.